Jake Lloyd grew up far from the lights and pressure that would later define his childhood. Born March 5, 1989 in Fort Collins, Colorado, he spent his early years surrounded by mountains, open air, and a family that tried to keep life warm and creative. His mother, Lisa, worked as an entertainment agent, and his father, Bill, worked as an EMT. Even when money was tight, they encouraged curiosity and imagination. By the time Jake was 4, he was already performing skits at school and charming relatives during family gatherings. Local theater groups gave him room to experiment, and Lisa quickly realized he had something rare. He wasn't afraid of being watched. He moved through auditions with a confidence that surprised adults, and when he landed a Smucker's commercial at 6 years old, things began to accelerate. He spent his early childhood performing in community shows, school plays, and small TV spots. The family's life changed sharply when his parents divorced and moved Jake and his younger sister Madison to Indianapolis. Bills piled up, and the stress around the home grew heavier, but Lisa pushed him into commercial auditions to keep the family afloat. Those jobs paid the rent and bought groceries, but they also tied Jake to a demanding schedule that most kids never experience. As he got older and entered Carmel High School, he struggled to balance work, school, and a complicated home life. Fame was already growing around him, and he felt the pressure to please everyone while trying to hold on to whatever was left of a normal childhood. His first major break arrived in 1996 when he appeared on as Jimmy Sweet, a child battling a rare illness. Filming emotional scenes beside George Clooney, often for up to 12 hours a day, took a toll on him. He was only 7, yet he delivered lines that held an entire crew silent. More work quickly followed, including Unhook the Stars and The Pretender, roles that demanded intense emotional focus. During one shoot, a prop door malfunction nearly injured him, and later that year he collapsed from exhaustion. His family and union representatives intervened, reminding producers about labor laws and limits for minors. Even so, Jake pushed himself because he had learned early that people expected a lot from him. Everything in his life changed the moment he was cast in Jingle All the Way alongside Arnold Schwarzenegger. Audiences loved his energy, but the shoot was chaotic. During one scene he knocked over a massive toy display, bringing production to a halt for hours. The tantrum scene required 15 takes and real tears, and the pressure he felt was already shaping him. Fame arrived quickly. Hundreds of fan letters poured in, but so did danger. A stalker began sending unsettling gifts, and his mother tightened security. Despite the attention, Jake confided that he preferred real toys to Hollywood ones, and that fame didn't feel like happiness. He was still a child trying to navigate a life shaped almost entirely by adults. At 7, he acted in a TV movie about the Apollo 11 mission, playing Mark Armstrong. The production used heavy replica spacecraft and zero-gravity rigs that made him dizzy. He memorized technical dialogue pulled from historical transcripts, improvised moments that startled the crew with their honesty, and endured long, humid days in uncomfortable costumes. The nomination he received for his performance became a reminder of how much he had endured on set. Working on Apollo 11 unknowingly prepared him for the role that would transform his life, young Anakin Skywalker. In 1997, Jake entered an audition process involving more than 3,000 children. George Lucas chose him because he felt authentic, unpolished, and exactly the kind of real child he wanted for the part. Jake had no idea what Star Wars meant to the world. He simply read the lines as naturally as he could. Lucas personally coached him, even accidentally injuring Jake during a rehearsal when a prop lightsaber swung too quickly. Jake kept going through the pain, and the adults around him saw how much weight he carried for someone so small. Filming The Phantom Menace was grueling. Under the Tunisian sun, temperatures soared past 110 degrees. Jake's thick costume trapped heat and sand, and he once collapsed from dehydration during a pod racing scene. He insisted on returning to work after a short break. Long Jedi Council scenes sometimes dissolved into laughter because he amused himself with Wookiee roars, and his brief ad-lib, a tiny yip, made it into the final cut because Lucas refused to remove it. But off-camera he sometimes broke down, overwhelmed by the expectations placed on him. He was only allowed to work 4 hours a day under California law, forcing the entire production schedule to bend around him and amplifying the pressure he felt. When the film premiered in 1999, Jake became internationally famous overnight. The movie made more than $1 billion, and his face appeared on toys, posters, cereal boxes, and video games. But the celebration didn't last. Critics targeted him cruelly, calling his acting wooden and blaming him for things far outside his control. Early internet forums mocked him, and more than 1,000 hateful letters arrived at his home. His mother shielded him, but his classmates didn't. He was bullied relentlessly, with kids repeating his lines and mocking his voice in hallways until he began withdrawing and skipping school. Ron Howard publicly defended him, but the hurt ran deep. He continued acting briefly, appearing in a heavy thriller and later in Madison, where a go-kart crash during filming left him shaken. Meanwhile, he faced constant harassment from classmates who treated him like a joke. By 12, he decided he never wanted to act again. Even his work in Star Wars video games eventually became too painful, and he walked out of a session he couldn't bear to finish. He graduated high school in 2007 and tried studying film and psychology in college, but something inside him was unraveling. He began seeing things that weren't there, hearing things he couldn't explain, feeling watched even in empty rooms. Doctors eventually diagnosed schizophrenia, a condition that ran on his father's side. He dropped out in 2008 and began a long, difficult fight against an illness he did not understand. By the time he appeared at conventions in 2012, he faced adults who shouted cruel comments at him, blaming him for a movie he filmed as a child. The experiences left him trembling and anxious until he stopped attending altogether. In 2015, during a psychotic episode, he led police on a panic-driven chase and was jailed for 10 months without treatment, something his mother later called a devastating failure of the system. Then in 2018, tragedy struck when his sister Madison, his closest confidant, died at just 26. Her loss broke something inside him, and he drifted further into confusion and grief. His lowest point came in 2023 when he stopped traffic on a freeway during another severe psychotic break. He spent 18 months in mandatory inpatient care, finally receiving the long-term treatment he needed. Medication and therapy stabilized him, and by early 2025 he moved into a rehabilitation program that gave him structure and gentle independence. He reconnected with his family, played video games, went on small outings, and slowly rebuilt trust in the world. For the first time in decades, he said he felt steady. His mother later clarified that his schizophrenia was a genetic condition, not caused by Star Wars or bullying.